There is a particular silence that arrives on a fixed gear bike. Although silence may be the wrong word, it is not the absence of sound, it is the replacement of noise with something more honest. The buzz of chain against cog, the low rasp of tyres over gravel, the breath trying to organise itself in the cold air. These sounds are not quiet in the ordinary sense, but they quiet something else. They quiet the nervous system, they give the nervous system a rhythm to hold, they turn the ride into a moving room. For the neurodivergent rider, this can matter intensely. Much of ordinary life arrives without pattern. Conversation stutters and overlaps, lights flicker, social expectations hide inside tone, timing and gesture. Screens offer numbers, notifications and comparisons. The world becomes a badly indexed archive of demands. In that setting, the appeal of fixed gear riding is not simply aesthetic, it can be regulatory. It gives your body, my body, somebody's body a problem it can understand. Tracklocross in particular intensifies this. A fixed drivetrain taken off-road is technically ridiculous, which is most of its charm. It removes options most cyclists consider necessary. There is no coasting. Mostly there are no brakes, or at least no brakes in the emotional sense. The rider cannot disappear into mechanical convenience. Every rise, rut, camber, root and loose patch has to be felt through the pedals. This is where the sanctuary begins. Modern cycling often asks us to become analysts of ourselves. Speed, cadence, heart rate, power segments, calories, elevation, relative effort, training stress, recovery score, sleep score, readiness score, and scores of scores. The ride becomes a spreadsheet with weather, which then becomes an additional data point. The body becomes a dashboard. Even leisure is dragged into the glowing bureaucracy of measurement. There is always another number, another comparison, another tiny digital foreman tapping away at the clipboard of your soul. Tracklocross resists this. The drivetrain gives no motivational badge, it does not congratulate you for suffering, it does not upload your spiritual crisis to a feed, it simply continues. The pedals turn because the wheel turns, and the wheel turns because you are still moving. The circular insistence produces a kind of mercy. It narrows the field of attention until the rider is no longer scattered across the day's anxieties, imagined conversations, unpaid admin, unfinished projects and the mysterious dread of the laundry. There is only this rotation, this breath, this patch of ground, then this next correction. For neurodivergent riders, attention is often misunderstood. It is spoken about as a deficit, a failure to focus, a wandering mind that refuses to sit nicely in the chair of expectation. Yet attention is not always absent, often it is excessive, diffuse, hungry and overconnected. It catches on everything. It notices the hum of a light, the label in a shirt, the emotional temperature of a room, the sound of someone chewing 3 tables away, the ambiguity of a message sent without punctuation. The mind does not fail to pay attention, it pays too much, too widely, too intensely. A fixed drivetrain gives attention a little track to follow. The body does not need to decide whether to attend the ride. The bike demands it. The pedals do not pause for rumination. The terrain does not care about your theoretical position. A loose corner becomes an immediate question. A steep bank becomes a negotiation between torque, traction and foolishness. The rider has to listen through the feet, his knees, their hips, her hands, their jaw. This is a perception as action rather than perception as detached observation. The rider does not look at the trail from a distance and then decides what it means. Meaning arrives through contact. This is why the sound of the cog and chain can become a sensory anchor. It is repetitive without being sterile. It varies enough to stay alive. On tarmac, the chain may hum with a tight metallic patience. On gravel, it chatters. In mud, it thickens into a duller, more resistant rhythm. When the ground rises, the sound changes with the pressure of the legs. When the rider eases, the whole system softens. The bike becomes a crude instrument, and the rider learns to hear the landscape playing through it. There is intimacy in that. Mechanical intimacy, not the polished intimacy of high-end equipment and showroom perfection, but the dirtier sort that comes from being implicated in every movement. On a geared bike, the rider can hide slightly, they can select an easier ratio, freewheel through discomfort, allow the machine to buffer them from the full argument of the ground. On a fixed gear bike, the argument continues. The bike becomes less an object and more of a loop. Rider, chain, cog, wheel, surface, body, breath. Nothing is fully separate. The system is small, stubborn, and alive. This can feel meditative. Although not in the soft focus way meditation is often sold or packaged as, there is no scented candle in this version unless something has gone badly wrong with your hub bearings. The meditation of fixed gear is harder, funnier, and more useful. It does not ask the mind to empty itself, it gives the mind a repeated task until the unnecessary noise begins to fall away. Push down, pull up, soften the knees, read the ground, let the bike speak, repeat, 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 repeat. For a neurodivergent nervous system, repetition can be a sanctuary. Repetition is often treated from the outside as limitation, rigidity, or obsession. Yet from the inside, repetition can be how the world becomes survivable. It allows prediction, it allows refinement, it turns chaos into pattern. That is not retreat from complexity, it is a way of entering complexity without being destroyed by it. The fixed gear ride does not simplify the world by making it easy, it simplifies the terms of engagement. Then it brings a little bit of a solitude. And here by solitude, I do not mean loneliness, I mean kinetic solitude. And kinetic solitude is solitude with motion in it. It is being alone without being abandoned to the endless theatre of thought. The moving body interrupts the static self. The rider is alone, yet accompanied by the drivetrain's blunt little sermon. The chain says here, the cog says now, the tyres say careful idiot. Together, they form a kind of mechanical pastoral care system. Neurodivergent people are often asked to regulate themselves in environments that they themselves are dysregulating. Sit still in the bright room, listen to the overlapping voices, decode the hidden rule, answer quickly, do not move too much, do not withdraw too much, be spontaneous but appropriately, be honest but not that honest, be yourself but edit heavily for public use. This exhaustion is not mysterious, it is engineered. Off-road fixed gear riding offers an alternative form of order. It does not demand stillness. It allows regulation through movement. It does not punish intensity. It gives intensity somewhere to go. It does not require the rider to explain their internal weather. The body simply enters the loop and begins to organise itself through rhythm, resistance and terrain. A lack of digital metrics can strengthen this. Without a screen, the rider cannot outsource meaning to numbers. The ride is no longer successful because it produced a certain average speed or matched a previous route. It becomes successful because something shifted internally. Your shoulders dropped, the jaw unclenched, the breathing, your breathing, my breathing, their breathing, somebody's breathing anyway, found a pattern. The mind stopped throwing furniture around for half an hour. These are not easily quantified outcomes, which is precisely why they matter. There is an ethics to all of this, and there is an ethics to riding without constant measurement. It is to resist the idea that experience only counts when it can be recorded, ranked or displayed. It is a small act of disobedience against a culture that wants every movement converted into evidence, and this is probably the true culture war we should live through. The fixed gear rider moving through mud without caring about metrics is committing a quiet heresy. They are saying that the ride has value even if it vanishes, and especially if it vanishes. This connects to the deeper appeal of Tracklocross as a deliberately inadequate practice. Its inadequacy is not a flaw to be overcome, it is a condition that makes the experience vivid. The wrong tool reveals the world differently. A fixed gear bike off-road cannot smooth everything out, it cannot flatter the rider with seamless efficiency, it exposes hesitation, timing, fear, rhythm, balance and stubbornness. It makes the rider participate. Neurodivergent riders know that participation can be clarifying. The body often knows things before language arrives. It knows when a space is too much. It knows when pressure is rising. It knows when the mind is becoming a room full of radios. Fixed gear riding gives the bodily knowledge a grammar, tension in the chain, pressure through the pedals, grip through the tyres, cadence through the legs. These are not abstract concepts, they are felt structures. They are the ways of thinking without needing to turn everything into speech. This is why mechanical honesty becomes psychologically useful. A fixed drivetrain does not flatter, it does not conceal, it tells you what is happening in blunt little pulses. If you fight it, it fights back. If you relax into it, it becomes strangely generous. The bike teaches through consequence. Too stiff and the ride becomes violent. Too loose and the terrain takes over. The rider learns to negotiate rather than dominate. That negotiation can feel like a form of self-knowledge because it is indeed self-knowledge. The sanctuary then is not found by escaping the world completely, it is found by entering a smaller, clearer world for a while. A world made of mud, chain tension, breath, gradient and weather. A world where the questions are immediate and physical. Can I hold this line? Can I keep traction? Can I stay calm when the back wheel skips? Can I let discomfort become information rather than panic? The last question may be important. Fixed gear riding does not remove discomfort, it changes the rider's relationship to it. The drivetrain's repetition turns discomfort into rhythm, the terrain turns uncertainty into feedback, the body learns that pressure can be read, not merely endured. For a nervous system used to being ambushed by invisible demands, this can be truly powerful and self-awareing. It is not therapy in the clinical sense, but it is therapeutic in the old wild sense, a practice that helps the self return to itself. There will always be cyclists who do not understand this. They will ask why anyone would ride the wrong bike in the wrong place with the wrong number of gears. They will suggest better tools, smoother systems and cleaner efficiencies. They may be correct in every technical sense, which is exactly why they miss the point. Tracklocross is not trying to win the argument of efficiency, it is trying to create an experience intense enough to be honest with yourself. The silence of a cog and chain is not silence because nothing is happening, it is silence because for once the right thing is happening loudly enough to quiet everything else. The drivetrain becomes a mantra made from metal. The trail becomes a page written in pressure and mud. The rider becomes less scattered, less haunted by a digital swarm, less trapped in the endless commentary of the self. In this moving solitude, the neurodivergent mind is not treated as a problem to solve, it is given a landscape that makes sense to it. Pattern, resistance, rhythm, texture, repetition, risk, feedback. A sanctuary built from motion rather than escape.